was obliteration.
We are confident, yes, that Iran's nuclear sites were completely and totally obliterated, as the president said.
First, our assessment of the battle damage around Fordow, Nantes, and Isfahan remains unchanged. I mean, we believe, and certainly all of the intelligence that we've seen have led us to believe that those facilities especially have been completely obliterated. And the interesting kind of side point about this, Tara, is that all of the conversations that we've had since Operation Midnight Hammer with our allies all around the world, but certainly also in the region, they say a couple of things. They share our sentiments about the degradation of Iran's nuclear program and the fact that we have degraded their program by 1 to 2 years, at least intel assessments inside the department assess that.
So just to clarify, we've now pivoted from completely obliterated to, we set them back a couple of years. And those goalposts are moving fast, huh? After a leaked report poked holes in Donald Trump's claim that Iran's nuclear program was completely and fully obliterated, as it reportedly shows Tehran's plans had only been set back a few months by US strikes. Well, as a result, the president was on the offense, lambasting the media while repeating his claims that it was obliterated, branding media outlets that dared to publish the report that came from our own intelligence agency, quote, scum.
This was an unbelievable hit by genius pilots and genius people in the military, and they're not being given credit for it because we have scum that's in this group, and not all of you are. You had some great reporters, but you have scum. CNN is scum. MSDNC is scum. The New York Times is scum. They're bad people. They're sick. And what they've done is they're trying to make this unbelievable victory into something less. Now, even they admit that it was hit very hard, okay? But it wasn't hit hard. It was hit brutally. If you were in the Situation Room with me, with the generals and all of the people that did such a good job, and then they get demeaned by these idiots at CNN who can't get ratings, the place is dying, nobody wants to even waste their time going on their shows. So they form with the New York Times, who's dying also. Without Trump, you wouldn't have a New York Times.
I'd like to say a word, if I may, Dana, about Jennifer Griffin, who was attacked by the defense secretary today, an attack she certainly, in my view, did not deserve. Her professionalism, her knowledge, and her experience at the Pentagon is unmatched. And I have had and still have the greatest regard for her. The attack on her was unfair.
He also sent out all of his chief propagandists to do his bidding. But the thing is, it wasn't long before the lies caught up to him. First, it was J.D. Vance, who poured cold water on the claim that it was completely obliterated.
You said totally obliterated. The president has said totally obliterated the Iran nuclear program.
Yeah.
Do you know for sure where all the highly enriched uranium is?
Well, Brett, I think that's actually not the question before us. The question before us is, can Iran enrich the uranium to a weapons grade level? And can they convert that fuel to a nuclear weapon? And we know, based on the success of our mission, of course, the leadership of the president, but the incredible skill of our military, that the two mission objectives are completely successful. We know that they cannot build a nuclear weapon. Now, you asked about the highly enriched uranium.
Yeah, like 900 pounds of it.
But what we know, Brett, is that uranium is something that exists in very large supply. Our goal was to bury the uranium, and I do think the uranium is buried, but our goal was to eliminate the enrichment and eliminate their ability to convert that enriched fuel into a nuclear weapon. I think this is an important point, Brett, because so many of the folks who have focused on the highly enriched uranium,
sure, 60%.
The main focus, Brett, has been to destroy their enrichment capacity, because we don't want that 60% uranium to become 90% uranium. That's the real concern, and that's what was so successful about our mission.
So after all this, if the Iranian government survives as is, what's to stop it from rebuilding over time if they, in fact, moved the 60% highly enriched uranium? That's the concern.
No, the big concern, Brett, and this is, again, what we destroyed, is their ability to enrich uranium. If they have 60% enriched uranium, but they don't have the ability to enrich it to 90%, and further, they don't have the ability to convert that to a nuclear weapon, that is mission success. That is the obliteration of their nuclear program, which is why the president, I think, rightly is using that term. But here's the question. If Iran is desperate to build a nuclear weapon in the future, then they're going to have to deal with a very, very powerful American military again. Our hope is that the lesson that the Iranians have learned here is, look, we can fly a bunker buster bomb from Missouri to Iran completely undetected without landing once on the ground, and we can destroy whatever nuclear capacity you build up. I think that lesson is what's going to teach them not to rebuild their nuclear capacity.
Before Republicans across the board decided they would just shift the goalpost.
It doesn't matter what Senator Murphy thinks about me or I think about him. Here's where we're at. The program was obliterated at those 3 sites, but they still have ambitions. I don't know where the 900 pounds of highly enriched uranium exists, but it wasn't part of the target set.
Are you concerned that in light of that several years, when the administration is saying it's obliterated, it suggests that they're not able to build a weapon? You're saying in several years, perhaps they'll be able to.
That's what I'm saying. They're obliterated today, but you can reconstitute. In the real question, have we obliterated their desire to have a nuclear weapon? As long as they desire one, as long as they want to kill all the Jews, you still have a problem on your hands. I don't want people to think that the site wasn't severely damaged or obliterated. It was. But having said that, I don't want people to think the problem is over, because it's not. They're going to keep trying this as long as they change, until they change their stated goal. Now, will they ever do that? I don't know.
Pivoting from complete obliteration to things like, well, have you even reported on how hard it is to fly these planes?
And then spin it in every way we can to try to cause doubt and manipulate the public mind over whether or not our brave pilots were successful. How many stories have been written about how hard it is to, fly a plane for 36 hours?
And then there was this from the Pentagon press secretary as Republicans voted on a bill that would gut Medicaid to foot the bill for massive tax breaks, claiming now that they think they just set Iran back a couple of years.
First, our assessment of the battle damage around Fordow, Nantes, and Isfahan remains unchanged. I mean, we believe, and certainly all of the intelligence that we've seen have led us to believe that those facilities especially have been completely obliterated. And the interesting kind of side point about this, Tara, is that all of the conversations that we've had since Operation Midnight Hammer with our allies all around the world, but certainly also in the region, they say a couple of things. They share our sentiments about the degradation of Iran's nuclear program and the fact that we have degraded their program by 1 to 2 years. At least intel assessments inside the department assess that, and I think their intelligence shares that conclusion.
Current assessments by this department think it's been degraded or delayed by 1 to 2 years?
I think we're thinking probably closer to 2 years, like degraded their program by 2 years. But
far cry from what we were told last week. And this sort of floated under the radar, right? They were clearly hoping it wouldn't gain any traction amidst the whole Republicans complaining about how ghastly the bill was before then voting for said ghastly bill.
What the Senate did is unconscionable. What they did to our bill was unconscionable. I'll vote against it here, and I'll vote against it on the floor.
You're going to hear a lot about the tax cuts, but the deficit, nobody's talking about the deficit. Nobody. I got it. The tax cuts are important. We are going to get the tax cuts done in some fashion. But we cannot saddle our children and our grandchildren with an exploding national debt.
Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests. But I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are not going to be advantaged by this bill.
But this is why we have to pay attention to every detail and scrutinize claims like complete obliteration, because they're constantly lying. I mean, it was obvious in the way that they reacted, lambasting the media for daring to report on an intelligence report.
I'm not going to talk about anything from the briefing. I mean, I walk away from that briefing still under the belief that we have not obliterated the program. The president was deliberately misleading the public when he said the program was obliterated. It is certain that there is still significant capability and significant equipment that remain.
Would you have authorized it knowing what?
Every detail should be scrutinized, whether it be the attack on Iran or the claim that this new bill won't gut Medicaid.
Mr. Speaker, I found the preamble to this big ugly bill. We the billionaires and our king, in order to deform and sicken our union, establish injustice, ensure domestic servility, weaken our people's defenses, undermine the general welfare, and reserve to ourselves and our posterity staggering debt servitude for eternity, do hereby instruct the Republicans in Congress to strip 17 million people of their health care, increase co-pays, deductibles, and premiums for everyone else.
We have to remain diligent because complacency is a Republican's best friend.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA union made.